Man City 2, Liverpool 2. The Reds coming from behind twice to keep the title race alive at the Etihad. A pulsating, enthralling encounter. And we're here on the debrief, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo, to look back on the Titanic tussle. Myself, Guy Clarke, and Matt Addison here to do exactly that. Well, Matt, as you were prior to kick-off, Liverpool still a point behind the reigning champions, looking to take their crown. But what an exhibition that was of two sides who quite rightly are vying to be champions this season.
Yeah, a breathless game, wasn't it? It was a very different game, I think, to what we expected. Liverpool didn't particularly play well in the first half. I thought City were much the better team in the first half. But, as the cliche goes, it's a game of two halves. And that was very much the case, I thought, for Liverpool. I think there's so many elements that you can get into. But fundamentally, for me, I said it before the game, I'd have taken a point from a Liverpool perspective. I know it doesn't put it into their hands. Obviously, a win would have been the absolute dream of a result, and that would have obviously given Liverpool a massive boost with 7 games to go. But to go away to the Etihad at this point in the season, to especially not play well in that first half and come away with a point, I think Liverpool are a little bit lucky, to be honest. I think there was a good few chances in that first half. Given the way that the game has gone, no doubt about it, Jurgen Klopp would take a point from that. But for me, even at the start, even before we knew that they played so poorly, I think that's not the worst result in the world. Obviously, now Liverpool have to better what Manchester City do over the remaining 7 fixtures. But for me, it's not the end of the world with the added context of Liverpool playing so badly in that first half. I think it's almost a dream result in some ways, given the sort of context of the game and how it went.
How fearful were you going in at half-time, the state of the game that it was, albeit Diogo Jota just before half-time had run through on goal, and this sort of seemed to get stuck in 2 minds whether to pass to Salah or go it alone, and Aymeric Laporte was able to get across. But it was the worst Liverpool have played in some time. City seemed to have the undoing of the high line. Of course, in the second half, Sterling had a goal disallowed for offside, but rightly that's showing the positives of the high line. But today, City, that we so well known for their incisive short passing, today their long passing was on the money more often than not. And Gabriel Jesus really did give Andy Robertson a torrid time at times, as demonstrated with City's second goal.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think that the high line generally has been good for Liverpool this season. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But when you come up against a team like Manchester City, you've got that pace and they've got the ability to time the runs and time the passes. You are always going to be running a little bit of a risk. I think that the poor performance from Liverpool was because of 2 things. I think, obviously, Manchester City played very, very well and pressed them back and were very intense. And I think Liverpool just were maybe a little bit nervous and a little bit kind of overawed by the occasion, which I think is very strange when you think of the games that this Liverpool team have played in. You think of, even someone who's not been here necessarily that long or has not necessarily played in the big games in Thiago. He's certainly played in big games elsewhere, so you wouldn't have thought that would have happened to him. But you look at players like Fabinho, who I thought was atrocious in the first half, got better in the second, but still wasn't anywhere near, the quality that he can bring to the table. Someone like Jordan Henderson didn't particularly start well. Even Virgil van Dijk and Joel Matip, I thought at the back were uncharacteristically just giving the ball away, not quite being in the right position at times. It was odd to see because, we've seen the mentality monsters, the way that Liverpool have played over the last couple of seasons. You wouldn't have expected that to be the case. Normally they improve, they rise to the occasion, but they just didn't quite manage to be able to get into that kind of a position. So I don't know. It's a strange one to try and explain, really, the performance from Liverpool in terms of that. But it's also, obviously, you've got to give the respect that Manchester City deserve. I thought they were excellent first half. The only thing that was missing, really, from that performance was to go and get another goal, to go and put themselves 2 or 3 in front. Luckily for Liverpool, it was only 1 goal at half time. And you mentioned there, how did I feel at half time? I think that was the overriding emotion was just relief, really. I think if that half had gone on for another 10 minutes or so, Liverpool would have really been in trouble. They needed Jurgen Klopp to get back into the changing rooms, really sort of give his team a talking to. And to be honest, I was surprised they didn't make changes at half time. I thought the way it had gone, I thought 1 or 2 changes might have been the way to go. But yeah, Liverpool, thankfully, were much better in that second half. And yeah, to have come out with a draw after that, I think is a credit to them. As much as they were really poor in the first half, to have the character then to change that around in the second, I think is really impressive.
Yeah, a few joining us in the chat box. Ben saying we were very lucky. Dan says, should have won this. It's a title decider. Can only hope City drop points, which is going to be hard to believe because they are good. But let's hope that they draw in one of their matches and Liverpool win the rest. And the Fool says, showed some serious guts there, Redmen. I've just got a feeling. And to be fair, I think that last point is a big one. You kind of referenced it before as well. There are two teams on the pitch. We so often hyper-analyse everything Liverpool are doing. At times, you've got to give credit to what the opposition do. And I think it's the first time this season in 23 Premier League matches City have taken the lead. They haven't gone on to win the game. So powers of recovery there for Liverpool, not once but twice, albeit it was a bad day at the office. But in that front line that Jurgen Klopp's got, and we've spoken about it so much since Luis Diaz arrived, today the score sheet reads Diogo Jota and Sadio Mane both on the score sheet. And while no one in red particularly had an outstanding stellar game, they've got that firepower at the top end of the pitch to help bail them out.
Yeah, two incredible goals as well. I think it has to be against this Manchester City team. I think the first one in particular is just so well worked. You look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, who I thought was probably maybe Liverpool's best player, certainly up there for Liverpool today in terms of his performance.
He was best. You mentioned the rest of the defence as well, but he was the best defender too.
Yeah,
which isn't always the case, but today certainly was.
Yeah, certainly shouldn't be forgotten. But in terms of that goal, yeah, we've said it midweek, we've said it now. It's just a perfect example of what he can bring to the table, really. And yeah, it was brilliant awareness. Obviously, you expect Diogo Jota to be in those positions. I think the kind of awareness from him as well to just stop running when everyone else was sort of getting in towards the goal, panicking a little bit. He was the one who kind of just stood still and anticipated where that ball was going to drop. And you always fancy him from that kind of a position. So yeah, incredibly impressive from him. The second one as well. I mean, there's all this nonsense we hear about Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane not passing to each other, but you don't get many better passes than that into Mane. So yeah, two really good goals from Liverpool. There will be one or two moments as well, as much as they played poorly, that they could have done a little bit better. There was that Jota one that you mentioned at the end of the first half. I wonder whether he could have done a little bit better with that. There was one or two other moments as well where they kind of got into those positions but didn't quite do it. So, yeah, we know what those players bring to the team. I do just wonder, though, Roberto Firmino didn't come on until the 84th minute. I wrote it in my post-match piece for Liverpool.com. I do just wonder whether that was a game for him, really, particularly in that first half where Liverpool just were penned back. They couldn't get themselves out. I know he's not quite as clinical. He's not quite got that ability that Diogo Jota has got to pop up with a goal. But, you know, defensively, to give Liverpool a bit of an outlet, I do wonder. And possibly, I mean, we know that he wasn't pictured in training. He wasn't in training on Friday. I just wonder whether there might have been a little bit of a knock, a little bit of a reason that he didn't come on. Because to me, that was the absolute pinnacle of a Roberto Firmino game. I think when Liverpool were under pressure, they just needed someone to give that ball to. And as much as Diogo Jota scored the goal, as we say every single week, he did find the back of the net. 21 now for him this season, so you can't really criticise him. But at the same time, I do think they were lacking a little bit of that link play.
It's one of those, isn't it? I think that's the final. I think with Firmino, the frustration has been he's never quite bar kind of what the 17-18 season, not really always scored as many goals as perhaps he could well have done for Liverpool. But with Jota, it's quite that build-up play. But he gets the goal, but there were a number of occasions in that first half where he was up on the halfway line, the ball was wrapped into him, and he tried to turn it off, flick it out to the left on one of them, out to Mane, and completely miscued it, gave the ball back to City, and that built pressure again. But likewise, as we say, the game's about goals, isn't it? And Diogo Jota scores. And Mark says,
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, Mark said in the chat as well, happy birthday, Mane. Let's not forget his 30th birthday, and he did pop up with a goal so often they forgot a man of that front three. And I mean, in terms of where this leaves it then, Matt, how are you feeling about the title race? We knew heading into this one, if Liverpool won every game this season, they would be, well, they'd win a quadruple, but in terms of the league, they would be league champions. It was in their hands. Technically, a draw today takes it out of their hands, but still, there's only a point in it.
Yeah, and they've got the more difficult fixtures. I think we have to admit that over the next few weeks. But I don't know. I don't think that this was a bad result for Liverpool. I think for me, going into this one, I'd have taken a draw, because I think Liverpool, over the course of the next few games, you know, if Manchester City win all 7 of those, then you just have to hold your hands up and say it wasn't this game today that cost Liverpool. It was, you know, being 2-0 up against Brighton in October and not winning that game. It was the chaos that they had at Brentford. I don't think it was this game today that would have cost them if it does come to that. I think for Liverpool, once you get to sort of 65, 70 minutes today, given the way that the game has gone, given the context of it, I think you have to accept that a draw was probably a little bit more than Liverpool deserved across the course of the 90 minutes today. So I think you've got to take that. And, the gamble now is that Liverpool are perfect and Manchester City are not. We've seen them drop points in strange games. I mentioned that obviously on paper, Manchester City's games are easier, but sometimes that is the way with football. Sometimes you just know that they've got one of those results in them. They've got something in them where they can drop those points. It does feel very much sort of the 18-19 season to me a little bit, but it only takes one drop points. It doesn't take them to lose a game. They only have to draw, and it's back in Liverpool's hands. But all they can do is just win the 7 games and see where they're at. And at least the fairy tale on the last day of the season, the Steven Gerrard Coutinho sort of duo could do it for Liverpool as things stand. So yeah, Liverpool have to look to favours from elsewhere, but I really, really don't think this was a bad result for them today. I think it's still all to play for. There's a long way to go, and obviously you would have liked a Liverpool win, but yeah, we've seen they haven't done that at the Etihad since 2015, so it was always going to be a difficult one.
Yeah, Premier League now taking a back seat as obviously the Champions League returns, and then FA Cup semi-final action next weekend against, you've guessed it, Manchester City. We will build up to that with plenty more reaction to come today to the draw at the Etihad Stadium. Of course, we'll have Jurgen Klopp's post-match press conference to come here on the Blood Red channel, as well as hearing from Pep Guardiola. And don't forget, tomorrow we will bring you the Blood Red podcast, our team at the Etihad reacting to the result and the implications for the title race. But for myself, Guy Clarke and Matt Addison, thanks for your time and your company here on the Debrief. It's bye for now.